Requesting connection. Established. Encrypted. We're live. The show you've been asking for. Advice, technology, and community. Linux first, all others second. This is Ask Noah.
Live from Ultimate Technologies, the Ask Noah Show starts right now. This is the show where we came to do all the things on Linux they said couldn't be done and take your questions on how to do the same. The phone lines are open this hour. To be a part of the program, it's a free call, 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 1-855-450-6624, or send an email to live@asknoahshow.com. My name is Noah Chalaya. I am your host. Delighted to be here with you this hour as another episode of the Ask Noah Show kicks off this hour. I gotta change that intro. There's too many hours. The word hour comes up too often in the intro segment. I have a question for you guys. I want you to join the conversation at 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. I want to change the program up a little bit. Just a little bit. I am always willing to take your tech questions, and those, of course, go to the front of the line. But if you guys tune in for a live discussion, I would like to start getting commentary. I'd like to start getting feedback. If I make a point and you don't agree with it, I'd like you to call and let me know about it. Now, you can email the program, live@asknoahshow.com. You can call us at 1-855-450-NOAH. But I'd like to have a two-way conversation because I think bringing a second perspective onto the program, or a third and a fourth and a fifth perspective, would make for a better program. Now, if you disagree with that, if that's not what you'd like to hear in the Ask Noah Show, then let me know. You can go over to podcast.asknoahshow.com or go to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click on the contact link, choose the Ask Noah Show down from the drop-down menu, and let me know. Your calls, of course, go to the front of the line. We're going to go to Eric. Hey, Eric, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah, how's it going?
Excellent. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing really well.
How can we help?
Okay, so I have been peeling myself away from Mac OS and iOS for the last couple of years, and one of the changes I made recently was building a SSL encrypted Nextcloud instance and installed the calendar and task plugins. But what I found was that they were fairly vanilla plugins. So they've got a bunch of pull requests out for new features and that kind of thing, but the developers actually have to have time to get to those features. So I'm looking for something to help me continue to replace iCloud. I've gotten rid of iCloud Drive with the Nextcloud file sync, but I need something that'll sync between iOS and Linux for, say, my calendar, my family's calendar, my to-do list, and contacts.
How big are your files that you're syncing around?
Yeah, if I got rid of the ISOs, we're talking maybe 12 gigs.
Okay, so I got a couple of things for you. First of all, be careful using OwnCloud to sync files around, okay? Because if you get larger files, particularly you, I know you do a lot of stuff with, I know you're a podcaster, I know you got video stuff like that going on. You want to be careful using OwnCloud for that because their back-end file sync can be broken if you start using large files. Okay, so that's thing one. Thing two is, have you looked at C-File at all?
I have looked at C-File. I'm pretty content with Nextcloud right now for file syncing. I'm just trying to peel myself away from calendar, tasks, and contacts on iCloud right now.
Okay. Well, I take it that you have looked into, I take it Nextcloud is not doing what you want it to do for calendar syncing?
Right. There's a few features. The one that jumps into my head the quickest is there's no recurring tasks. So things that I have set up to remind me every other day or every week or something, I'd have to manually recreate every time I complete a task. Man,
that's crazy, dude. I can't. I'm be honest with you, man. I'm shocked that's not a thing. That's not a feature that's already there. I'm sorry to hear that. Right. The only other solution I can think of for you, open source solution I can think of for you, is a software platform called Zimbra. Have you ever heard of it?
I have not.
So Zimbra is a collaboration suite. It includes an email server, a web client. It was initially designed by a company called Liquisys, which then changed the name to Zimbra back in 2008. And they have an open source software suite that is designed for syncing email, calendar, contacts, all those kinds of things. They've been doing it a lot longer than Nextcloud. I think it'd be a great option for you. I might check that out if you have some time. And I thank you so much for the call. Jim is calling from Virginia. Hey, Jim, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Good evening, Noah. Thanks for taking my call. I don't know if I'm upgrading, but at least I'm side grading of the machines at our house from Linux Mint to Ubuntu Mate. And I ran into a problem with one machine recently. Hadn't ever happened before. Usually when I upgrade, it's been within Linux Mint, and the encrypted file is just, the encrypted drive is just available because I use the same operating system and the same password and same username. Did that on another machine with this Mate, with this Mint to Mate change, and I couldn't unlock the machine. I couldn't unlock the drive. And so I'm wondering if I missed a step. It was okay because I could restore everything from a backup. That wasn't an issue other than time. But I would like to learn from the mistake and see if there's a way to do it correctly. These are drives that have been set up under eCrypt FS just while the operating system's installing.
Okay.
So is there some way to unencrypt, to make certain that the encryption that's there can be handled by Linux Mate, Ubuntu Mate, I should say?
Well, Ubuntu Mate should have all of the necessary tools to decrypt anything that you've encrypted on another Linux system, right? And if you install, and so by default, this really shouldn't even be an issue. As far as I know, once a drive is encrypted, once a partition, because you don't encrypt drives, you encrypt partitions, but once a drive is encrypted, I don't know of a way to unencrypt that partition without deleting that partition entirely and then copying the contents of it back onto an unencrypted, newly created partition, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, essentially what I had to do last time. Even though, to the best of my knowledge, same username, same password, perhaps it was just an upgraded version of the encryption algorithm. I don't know. So other than that, you're saying just there's really no way to be absolutely certain when going from Mint to Mate that Mate will be able to see the drive, even though it's got the password and so forth.
Well, I'm absolutely certain that if the tools used to decrypt the drive work on Linux Mint, they will work on Ubuntu Mate. There's no question in my mind, because the encryption tools have nothing to do with the desktop environment, right? So if you have, and it doesn't matter what you use to encrypt the drive, if the code runs on Linux Mint, the code is going to run on Ubuntu Mate, almost without exception. There might be some weird graphical glitch thing that I'm overlooking, but I can tell you with 99.9% certainty, if it was my data, if it was something that I really cared about, I wouldn't bother monkeying around with the partition. I would just install Ubuntu Mate and install the encryption tools. And let me ask you this: worst case scenario, let's say I'm wrong. Let's say you take this 99% to the bank and it turns out to be the 1%. Would there be anything wrong with reinstalling a Linux Mint to retrieve your data? I'm not saying you'd like to do that. I'm not saying it's a great option, but at no point in this discussion do you lose your data, right?
Correct. Well, like I say, the last time it was all backed up, so it was just a matter of restoring it to the partition. It wasn't, it wasn't traumatic. It was just annoying.
Right. Yeah. So I wouldn't worry about it. I don't even think you'll have an annoyance. I don't think you'll even have an inconvenience. I think it's going to work for you right out of the box, because I can't think of an encryption tool. I can't think of any tool that would only run on Linux Mint and not Ubuntu Mate.
Okay. Well, I wish I could figure out what I did wrong last time, because that didn't work. So I put off doing it on another machine until I could do some more homework and then check with you.
I hear you.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll do a little bit more homework, but I'll take one machine where the data it won't take so much time to restore it, and give it a try and see what happens on that.
Good luck, sir, and thanks for the call. And one last thing I'll add, a piece of advice you didn't ask for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. Good on you for moving from Linux Mint to Ubuntu Mate. I agree with that decision wholeheartedly. We're going to go to our Mumble Room. You too can join the Mumble Room by pointing your Mumble client to mumble.jupiterbroadcasting.org. It's a voice over IP client. Gets a little bit better audio quality, and there's an ongoing discussion that occurs on and off the air. We go to Iconic Badger from our Mumble Room. Good afternoon. You're on the Ask Noah Show.
Hi, Noah. How are you?
Hey, man. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. Thanks.
So you are, this is kind of putting the cart before the horse, but we're going to get to a story later on today where a homeless gentleman got a job by standing on a bridge holding up a sign asking for a job. You said, I have something to add to that discussion, so congratulations, you're on the air.
Thanks. So as you said, there was a guy in the States who was so desperate for an IT job that he decided it would be a good idea to stand with a sign by a freeway, and he ended up being shared and going viral on social media, and lots of big tech companies have offered him jobs. But I thought it'd be interesting to tell your listeners about what I did. I've just turned 30. I currently work for Red Hat as a consultant. But I originally did a music degree in brass band studies, no less, in Manchester in England. Whilst I was there, I got a part-time job with Apple, repairing Macs and iPhones on the Genius Bar. And that was pretty cool as a part-time job. And then I left uni and it turned into a full-time job. And I stayed there for a little while, and it got a bit boring after a little while. There's only so many times you can reset someone's iCloud password in 5 minutes and not want to murder them. So I then ended up discovering Linux in my spare time. What started it all actually was I had a failed 1.5 terabyte hard drive. So I thought, right, how can I prevent this happening again? So I started looking at things like Synologies, and I built an Unraid box and quickly discovered that I had a bit of a passion for Linux and open source stuff. And then about 4 years later, I'd had enough of retail, working in retail. So I ended up going and doing an MSc at the University of East Anglia in Norwich. And for me, I think the important thing whilst I was there was sort of looking around at the people around me and trying to figure out where I fitted into that landscape. And you ask yourself that question: how do I make myself stand out? What makes me? What can I do that makes me more human to a recruiter? That makes my CV stand out? That how do you make it so that your strategy is to not just be a name on a list? So I went to the recruitment fairs at the uni and ended up getting a job as an intern as a developer, writing Python, and I really loved that job. It taught me an awful lot of stuff. But I think the reason I got that job wasn't because I was the best developer, because I know for sure that I am not. It was because I went to them and said, hey, this is me. I do this stuff in my spare time. I just started the website linuxserver.io with a few buddies that I'd met on the Unraid forums. So I could show them that I had a passion in my spare time, that, I'm not just in it for the money. I love Linux, and, I love technology, and I want to always be improving myself. And here's some projects I've got in my spare time. And I actually turned down a job at that point, driving a van around East Anglia in England, fixing computers, and it felt really risky because the job driving the van paid about double what the internship paid. And I remember my father telling me, "Oh, you're crazy, you should take the better paying job." And I felt like the internship, even though it was a short term pain, was going to pay so much dividend long term.
I like it.
Turned out to be right.
I like that. I like that a lot, because I think that's where people overlook, and I think that's the tie-in to this story. That's kind of what I want to talk about this afternoon, is the fact that you don't get a job by sitting on monster.com and filling out job applications. You don't get a job by sending out your resume, right? You get a job by getting in there and proving that you're a valuable asset to that company. That sounds like that's what you did, and it sounds like it landed you a good job.
Yeah, I think so. In the end, so I ended up leaving the company that gave me the internship because they made a bad acquisition and had to restructure. And that new company was an hour away. So it was in a place called Cambridge in England, and everybody knows Cambridge, right? So, and the reason I got that job was because one of the developers from the company I was at had just transferred to that new company. So I've generally found it's not necessarily what you know. I mean, of course, that helps. It's who you know and how you can build that relationship with the new company before you get there. So, I mean, take how I joined Red Hat, for example. That company in Cambridge, I ended up bringing in OpenShift for them, which was a Kubernetes enterprise container platform. And I ended up building a really great relationship with, the Red Hat account team and some of the other consultants, and sort of, asked them, how do I differentiate myself? What can I do? And they said, basically, we know who you are. We know what you're good at. We know what you're bad at as well, by the way. And it's a case of, like you say, of just not being just a name on a list. You've got to build those relationships with people. 100%.
And the interesting thing, and I thank you very much for joining the discussion. You can join the discussion too over mobile by pointing your mobile client to mobile.jupiterbroadcasting.org. The interesting thing about Red Hat, and I've seen this time and time again, I make it to Red Hat every so often, and one of the things that they're big on is they hire people based on your GitHub record. So they'll look back and they look for people that are already celebrities in the community that are already doing good work, and then they say, we'll give you a paycheck to keep doing it, right? And that's how you get a job at Red Hat. And if you think you're just going to walk in there and say, well, I had a job at the last place and my education is and my job experience is, no. At least not at Red Hat. That's not the way they do things. Open phones this hour at 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. The email live at AskNoahShow.com. Harvey calls from Massachusetts. Hey, Harvey, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
How you doing, Noah? I'm calling back first off because you gave me some advice a little while ago about gaming on Linux, and you told me, hey, just start a virtual machine and get it going in under Linux, and I actually did that. It works out really well.
Awesome.
So thank you for that.
I got to tell you, man, it makes for way better radio when you call me back and tell me that it works out really well than when you call me and tell me that your computer started on fire and it killed 3 of your neighbors and your cat died. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. So it's actually working so well that I decided to, make that project a little bit bigger. So what I want to do is I want to making an even bigger gaming machine. In one part Windows, one part Linux, of course, and it's all going to be running on Linux. So I want to use KDE for a desktop on this when I do this new build in about a week or so. But I keep on running into this issue where whenever I have multiple screens on KDE, it just doesn't load right. Or I'll restart the computer and all of a sudden the configuration is completely gone from when I left it off before.
Are you using NVIDIA?
You know how to. I do have an NVIDIA graphics card, but it was not activated. When I came across a screen issue when I was using the Intel graphics on my laptop.
Interesting. And this was how did you get to KDE? Is this Kubuntu or this is KDE Neon or what are we using?
Kubuntu.
Really? Latest version, 1804?
1804.
And that is weird.
I downloaded a new ISO because I thought there was something wrong, and it gave me the same exact issue. But if I run it on a single screen, everything's just perfect.
And we got 2 screens going on, and those are both. Well, no, wait a second now. I'm trying to think through this in my head. So you've got 2 monitors plugged in, and somehow you've gotten those plugged in without using the discrete graphics.
I was testing it out on my laptop.
Okay.
I have the lid closed, and I have 2 monitors. I have connected 2 monitors, and whenever I try to look it up, just things are completely out of whack and so on.
What kind of laptop is it?
Come across something like that, but yeah, it's a Lenovo. It's a ThinkPad T. I can get that exact T number for you.
Dude, that's enough. That's all I need to know. That is a weird circumstances. I'll tell you what I know. What I know is that I have 5 ThinkPads that I've put Kubuntu on. 3 of them I am using in USB-C docks, which means 95% of the time that they're in use, they are connected to dual monitors, and I've never seen this issue. So that is a really, really weird thing. What I might try doing, just as a troubleshooting step, Harvey, I might try installing KDE Neon on it and giving that a shot. And here's why. KDE Neon is specifically designed to be the latest and greatest experience of KDE. So if it works there, it is possible that the KDE developers have found an issue, they have fixed an issue, and it exists in KDE Neon, but has not yet been propagated to Kubuntu, to the Kubuntu team. Does that make sense to you?
That makes perfect sense.
I might give that a shot.
I had this.
Good.
Yeah, I had this issue on both my Lenovo laptops, and so I guess trying Kde Neon would probably be the next best step.
Give that a shot. Right. Give that a shot, and do me a favor. Give me a call back. Let me know one way or the other. Either it did work or it didn't. But I'd like to know. That's an interesting issue to keep my eyes on, and I want to keep that on the horizon because that I've not seen that issue before. It's a weird issue, and more importantly, if you're experiencing that, there's going to be a lot of other people that are experiencing it, particularly if you're having it on two machines. Chase calls from Texas. Hey, Chase, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah, how are you? So here's the deal. I'm in IT. I've been in IT for a long time, so the folks know that. And so I'm their at-home computer repair guy.
Of course. Yep.
I've decided, I want to kind of get a team viewer sort of thing going. I was looking at dwservice.net. The only thing that gives me a little bit of trepidation is that I don't find a name behind the service nor a group. And I've tested it out on some Raspberry Pis and what have you, and it works great. But I wanted to get your feel as to, using that to, say, repair my folks, like Windows 10 laptop or, I would have them run it, not install it, and because you can do that, and it generates a username and password. But I wanted to get a feel, get your opinion on, whether or not that's relatively safe.
Sure.
As far as, security and what have you.
Sure. So
or there was another service available.
Yeah, there is, and we'll get to that in a second. So first of all, who owns DW Service? It's DW Service. I played with them a while back when I was trying to when we were looking at different remote solutions. I don't know who owns them. Mm-hmm. I don't know what the parent company is. I just quickly did a who's lookup on their website to just see if there was anything that was here, and it's all they have it privacy protected. So. There's no way to actually look into. All I can tell is that it's registered with 2 cows, which is a great registrar. So, I guess that's whatever small vote in their favor. Here's what I'm not a fan of DW Service. To my recollection, it requires you to broker the connection through their service, right? You can't, when you sign up for it's a service-based, it's a service-based remote desktop protocol. So basically, you sign up for an account with them, and they host everything, and you just download the client, and then you download the remote access thing, and then you're able to get to it. Now, the good news is it works on Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. So they do support everything under the sun, including ARM and Pine 64. So that's cool.
Yeah.
However, I'm always a fan of things that are self-hosted, or at least that you have the ability to self-host. And so what we've done at Altispeed Technologies, and what I've recommended since the beginning of the show for remote desktops, is a program called SimpleHelp. Now, SimpleHelp has a variety of different tiers that you can buy into. I think it starts at a couple $100, and then it goes up from there. It's a lifetime thing, so once you buy the software, you own it. There's no, it's not a service-based thing. They do have hosted versions. Altispeed Technology actually provides hosting solutions, so if you wanted it just set up and you just wanted to use it, you would still purchase the SimpleHelp license, but we would host all of the infrastructure for you for a low monthly fee. That's an option that you have. But you can run it on a DigitalOcean droplet. You can run it. We run ours on an OVH instance for like $2.99 a month or some ridiculous thing. And the nice thing about the SimpleHelp service, Chase, is that the only thing that the server does is broker the connection between the client and the server. So the good part about that is you don't have to worry about, can your folks, do they have the firewall configured correctly for VNC to transition? You don't have to worry about any of that nonsense. SimpleHelp will figure all of that out, does everything through UDP. Now, once the connection is established, it creates an encrypted connection from the local machine to the client machine, and then the connection is direct. So, for example, when I'm doing on-location remotes for the Ask Noah show, I use SimpleHelp to get back into the studio so that I can control the machines here. And it's real-time enough that I can start the stream, cue the music, all of those things happen fast enough that I can control it, and that's because my connection is going directly from whatever studio I'm broadcasting from that day right in here into my studio. It's a really great piece of software, and the other thing is they take Linux support very, very seriously. I have had because we've been using. The story behind it is we started using TeamViewer, and ran into some issues with TeamViewer. Called TeamViewer up, said I want to try and use this for commercial infrastructure. Said okay. They said sure. Go ahead and try it for a day, see if it works for you, and then you can buy a license if you want to. I said, great, let's do that. So we tried to use it for a day. We didn't make it through hour number 3, and TeamViewer was crapping all over itself and warning us that we were illegally using it and warning us that it wasn't commercial and all this other stuff. And so I called TeamViewer up, and I was very upset. Hey, we have a client. Hey, we're trying to get some work done here. You told us we could try this for 24 hours. We haven't even gotten past hour 3, and this whole thing is screwed 6 ways to Sunday. And they said, yes, sorry about that, but good luck. And that was the end of it. And I looked into, and TeamViewer license, I think, was like $800 or $900 at the time. Simple Help license was $300. We bought the Simple Help license. It got us through that emergency, and I just haven't turned my back on them since. We have run into a couple of issues. There have been a couple things crop up when they switched to Wayland. Simple Help originally didn't work. Had a couple of issues when GNOME updated, and every time I have tweeted those guys or sent an email in or filled out a support ticket, hey, it doesn't work on this, it doesn't matter. They don't care what desktop distribution you're using. They don't care what desktop environment they're using. They don't care what the problem is. They get it fixed, and they get it fixed within like 24 to 48 hours. And I've seen that happen 4 or 5 different times. I've also heard of cases where people have reached out to them and said, hey, you know what? I'm a home user. I'm not using it for anything commercial. Can you work with me on some things and make me a deal? And they've been able to work with people, and they'll find a solution that fits in your budget. So they're a great company. They really have a lot of respect for Linux, and they've done a really good job for us here at Altispeed. And I'm saying all of that, and they've never given me a dime. I don't have any official relationship with them other than I'm a customer. I just think the world of their product. I think a world of the service, and I think the world of the fact that they take their Linux customers seriously.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll look into them. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And Simple Help, if you're listening, that's I got to start charging people for paid advertisements on this program. I tell you what, because that's they're not paying me to say any of that. They just really made a fantastic product and a fantastic service. So I just have to give credit where credit's due. Open phones this hour, 1-855-450-NO. It's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. Another plug for our Mumble Room. You too can join the conversation. If you'd like a higher quality audio, you want to join from your computer, just download Mumble. It's a free voice over IP audio client. You can point that client to mumble.jupiterbroadcasting.org, and you can join the conversation that way. Just ping me in the chat room. You can join the live chat room by going to jblive.tv or pointing your IRC client to irc.geekshed.net. Headline, or ABC News headline: homeless web developer hungry for success gets a fresh start thanks to a viral tweet. Homeless and hungry for success, David Carez is now on the road to a new life thanks to a stranger's compassion. Jasmine Schofield spotted the 26-year-old Cortez standing on the Silicon Bridge Street with a unique sign and handing out his resume. She shared his story and posted a copy of his resume on Twitter in a post that quickly became viral, capturing the attention of hundreds of potential employers. Caceres is an unemployed web developer from Texas living in a park in Mountain View, California. He was wearing his finest tie and holding a sign that read, "Homeless, hungry for success. Take a resume." Schofield posted, "Today I saw this young homeless man asking for people to share his resume instead of asking for money. Please retweet so that we can help David out." I told myself, all I need is one person to take my resume and I can say, hey, I'm going to give an opportunity to this guy, the college grad told ABC News. Now, I want to stop here and just point something out. This is not some bum with no skills, right? This guy has a college degree. He is a web developer by trade. He has a formal education in web development, so he can make a lot of money with the right employer. My question is, why is it so difficult to get a job in this country? Why does it take these kinds of extreme measures? What's the most difficult thing you've ever done to get a job? How do you get a job? If you got that answer, I'd like to hear it. 1-855-450-NO. It's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. I know that if I saw this guy sitting in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and he wanted a job, by golly, I'd give it to him. I'd take a chance on him. Of course I would. And why wouldn't I? People that are willing to go extreme lengths to show that they can be valuable to your business deserve a chance. I believe that wholeheartedly. Now, whether or not I would allow myself to get into the point that I am homeless, that's a different story. The article goes on to say that the Texas A&M graduate previously worked for General Motors before moving to Silicon Valley to pursue his tech startup dreams. He became homeless after, and I quote, spending all of his money attempting to start his own tech company. Now, again, I feel for the guy. Again, if he was sitting in my office and said he wanted an opportunity to prove himself, hey, we're redoing our website right now. By the way, if you have a logo suggestion, you can email that to logo@altispeed.com. We're taking those logo suggestions. We want to revamp our logo. It's been 10 years. It's time for Altispeed to get a facelift. So if you have any ideas, you can check that out. We'll have a link for you with more details in the show notes. You can get those show notes by going to podcast.asknoahshow.com. But this gives me pause. This gives me pause that he spent all of his money trying to start his own tech company. How does that happen exactly? First of all, if you're going to start a tech company, you might not move to Silicon Valley in California, particularly from Texas. It's not like there aren't people that need technical service in Texas, and there are sure a lot of people that need technical services somewhere between Texas and Silicon Valley in California. Silicon Valley in California is probably the most heavily densely populated place of techies and tech startups and tech businesses and tech ideas. We used to have a saying in the business. It's called, ideas are a dime a dozen. If I had a dime for every time somebody walked into my office and said, I have the next best idea, I've got plenty of ideas of myself of how I can make a bunch of money. Okay. The reason that I don't do them, the reason that we don't pursue them is because I also have a realistic handle on the fact that this company, Altispeed Technologies, has to have focus, and we have to do what serves the interest of our customers. That's not saying we don't ever go out on a venture, but it is saying that when we do go out on a venture, if we're going to take a chance, if we're going to spend some money, if we're going to put an investment somewhere, we do some basic market research. And basic market research says unless you have literally the next big idea, you probably don't want to start pitching that in Silicon Valley, California. Why not start in Texas? Why not start in Nevada? Why not start in Oklahoma or New Mexico? Why not start in some place that is not as heavily dominated by technical types and technical startups? Why not get the business idea rolling? Why not get some customers, build some brand recognition, be a big fish in a small pond? And then, if the idea proves to be successful in Texas, in New Mexico, in Las Vegas, in one of the bazillion states in between, Texas and California, or somewhere in that general area, if it's successful there, then go ahead and move to California, and then compete with all the big leagues in Silicon Valley. Let me know what you think. 1-855-450-NOAH. That's 855-450-6624. The email, live@asknoahshow.com. This is not how you get a job. It's what I said earlier in the program. You don't get a job by sending out resumes. You don't get a job by filling out things on monster.com. And I can tie 3 calls into this very point, right? We had the guy that's talking from Red Hat, and he's saying, I got a job because of what I was doing. That's why Red Hat picked me up. Okay, then you got this guy from California, and it's again, it's what he's doing, not what he's saying. If he's handing resumes out, or filling out resumes, or filling out job applications on monster.com, on indeed.com, those are all great tools. Those are great things to keep your eye on so you know where a place is looking, but that's not how you get a job. And I can speak to this with a certain amount of authority. I've gone on a personal venture. Some of you may know, I talked about it last week on the show. I'm doing some part-time fill-in work for KNOX, another radio station in Grand Forks. And I didn't get that position by filling out applications on monster.com or indeed.com. To be fair, I didn't get the job by standing on a bridge holding up a sign either, but I got the job by showing up and making myself valuable and saying, I can add more to this I can add more value to this company than you'll ever be able to pay me. And when you do that, when you show up at a company and you provide more value than they have to pay you, they want to keep you there. That's how that works. There isn't a person here at Altispeed Technologies that we pay, that we don't take in more money for that person's existence than we pay them. And it has to be that way if we are to remain profitable. Now, that's not entirely true. There are a couple of people that do some administrative things or help me out, and directly assist, but those are luxuries. The people that actually have guaranteed job securities, those people take in more money than they cost. To that point, my personal assistant, as the first thing comes to mind, personal assistant, she's not bringing any money. I've talked about this before, but we pay her. She'd also be the first one to go if we ever had to cut somebody because she doesn't bring in any money, because she's not that valuable from a money standpoint. I'm not talking about her humanity, obviously. 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. The email live at AskNoahShow.com. Again, you can join a chat room, irc.geekshed.net, or you can join the Mumble Room, mumble.jupiterbroadcasting.org. Headline: GPD Pocket 2 crowdfunding campaign goes live. The GPD Pocket 2 crowdfunding campaign is now live on Indiegogo. It has already smashed through its $100,000 goal in less than 12 hours. It seems that the demand for the 7-inch tablet is just as high as last year's model, despite a moderately higher price tag. We spotlighted the GPD 2 a few weeks back, noting that the second-gen model has a much faster processor, a redesigned keyboard, a rather controversial no-pointer nub, and there's an optical pointer above the keyboard instead. GPD is not selling a model pre-installed with Ubuntu this time, but given the relatively poor reception of their Linux model received last year, it's perhaps easy to understand why. Nevertheless, a passionate Linux community who has built up around the original GPD Pocket, which now works much better with Linux distros like Ubuntu, thanks to the improved hardware support in the latest Linux kernel, and the community support will no doubt ensure that this model is knitted with a capable community-based Linux distro as well. You can see a comparison of the GPD Pocket and GPD Pocket 2 in this video. We'll have that video linked for you in the show notes. Although the lack of the HDMI port is annoying, you can connect the GPD Pocket 2 to an external monitor using a USB-C to HDMI adapter. The GPD Pocket 2 is not cheap. The base model runs roughly the same price as a new Microsoft Surface Go, albeit without the keyboard. On the flip side, it does offer comparable specs to the recent Microsoft Surface Pros. The terrifically high-resolution touchscreen and unibody magnesium case, just like the Surface Pro and the Apple MacBook, does offer some food for thought. The 4GB model costs, here it is, $529 as part of the crowdfunding campaign, and the 8GB model costs $599. The apparent MSRP will be $770 and $840 respectively. In other words, that will be $770 for the 4GB model, and the retail price on the 8GB model will go for $840. The 7-inch form factor doesn't put you off, and then the author goes on to talk about how he doesn't prefer the 7-inch form factor. Truth be told, I really like small computers. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. Would you use a computer that doesn't ship specifically with Linux? Would you use a machine that didn't have Linux pre-installed or didn't even officially support Linux? Let me know. 1-855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624. Of course, you can email us live at AskNoahShow.com. I didn't think that their previous version got poor reception. I think it got adequate criticism for advertising that something was going to ship and work with Linux, and it didn't. I would have bought one. I've gone on the record since long before GPD Pocket was a dirty thought in the inventor's mind that I like small computers. I like portable machines. I like things that I'm able to use. And when the GPD Pocket came out, I looked at it and I looked at some of the reviews that came out, and I struggled to spend that much money to buy something that didn't work out of the box properly with Linux. And I can understand why they might decide to sell this as a Windows thing instead of a Linux thing. I guess I kind of get that. Because had they done that the first time around, the bar wouldn't have been as high. But when I'm going to pay for something, especially if I'm going to pay for something and I expect it to work out of the box with Linux, then it better work with Linux out of the box. And if it doesn't, then we have a problem. I'm still interested to see where this goes because, like the article points out, there has been a very vibrant community that's popped up around the GPD Pocket. In fact, there's a vibrant community that's popped up around the Microsoft Surface. There's pretty much no hardware that there isn't some group of Linux users that really wants to get it to work. And I think that's part of what makes Linux such a fantastic operating system, right? One of the things I think that is fundamentally lacking in the Windows world and in the Mac OS world is you don't get as much of a say in hardware. Windows significantly more than Mac OS, obviously. But if you want I'll take Mac's an easier one to pick on. It doesn't matter what you want in a Mac computer. If you want a traditional USB port, today you're totally hosed. Apple will decide that for you. Apple will decide if you want a full functioning USB port. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you're not even going to be able to buy a traditional desktop/laptop. I think they're going to pare it down to something a lot like the iPad, because I think that's what's in Apple's best interest. But I don't think, but when it comes to Linux, you get to choose. If you want to run that on Apple hardware, well, there's a group of people doing that. If you want to run it on a Microsoft Surface, well, there's a group of people doing that. If you want to run it on Lenovo, there's people at Lenovo that are doing that. And now if you want a small pocket computer, well, guess what? There's a group of people making sure your operating system, your way of doing things, your software platform, your software repository, all of those things are going to be available and working on this small pocket computer. And I guarantee you, in fact, I'd make you a bet the GPD Pocket 2 works better out of the box with Linux than the GDP Pocket 1 because they've established a brand recognition and a following, and there are already people that are going to be working on this stuff. So to a certain degree, I think it's an oversight on their part not to offer the GPD Pocket 2 with Linux. Why not reach out to the Linux community and just say, hey guys, we didn't get the reception we wanted. We got the reception we deserve. We didn't get the reception we wanted on Linux. How can we change that? You know how many people would reach out and say, hey, I know exactly what the problem is and exactly how to fix that? You know how many developers would say, hey, I fixed it on the GDP Pocket 1. Here's what you need to do. Maybe send a couple of those devices out to those developers, the people that did it on the GDP Pocket 1, GPD Pocket 1, and say, hey, can you get this to work on the GPD Pocket 2? Why not give that a shot? I think they're missing the ball here. I think they're missing a really great opportunity to sell a really fantastic product. Because the thing is, desktop users we are coming to an impasse. The smartphone, smart tablet, smart world that we live in demands that our technology is more and more portable. It demands, and society expects us not to have bulky technology. It is socially inappropriate to show up at a sporting game with a laptop. I know because I'm the guy that shows up to a sporting game at a laptop. To all of those that are making fun of me, don't invite me to a sporting game. I will show up with my laptop, okay? You know, it's kind of one of those here's your sign things. I don't like sports. I don't care about sports. But it's socially unacceptable to show up to a sporting game with a laptop. It's socially acceptable, however, to pull your phone out every which way you are. It doesn't matter where you are. You can be out with dinner. You can be at a formal dinner. The President of the United States can be speaking to you and you can be a reporter, and it is perfectly acceptable for you to stand there in front of your smartphone with your head buried in it. I've seen that firsthand. Society expects technology to get smaller, and those of us that want a traditional desktop-like experience on our computer systems, even if those computer systems are small, are few and far between. Most people are happy with iOS. Most people are happy with Android. I understand that that upsets a lot of you Linux users out there. It upsets me. I prefer a desktop working environment. But this is the world we live in. And companies like the GPD Pocket, those are the companies that are making a solution for us because our technology can be as portable as an Android or an iOS, or certainly more portable than a laptop. And as portable as something like the Microsoft Surface, right? One of the reasons I was so interested in the Surface 1, we took this question last week. One of the reasons I was so interested in the Microsoft Surface 1 is because it allowed me to fundamentally do things I couldn't do with a traditional laptop. When you fly on an airplane, for example, they want all quote-unquote large electronics stored. It doesn't matter that my 13-inch laptop, my 13-inch ThinkPad X270 is exactly the same size as my Microsoft Surface. Maybe a bit thicker, but overall the exact same size. That doesn't matter. What matters is that the FAA classifies my Microsoft Surface as a tablet and it classifies my X270 as a laptop. So 20 minutes of my 1-hour flight to Minneapolis are burned if I'm using my ThinkPad, but the Surface is absolutely no problem. And that's true on any flight domestically and a lot of flights internationally. So this is something that is, and that is just one. That is just one of many, many examples that we're going to start to see in society as computers in general. The traditional computer becomes antiquated and outdated, and it's for old fuddy-duddies, and the tablet and the phones become the new norm. So companies like this are fundamentally solving that problem, and I think we need to give them our support. I'd be interested to hear from you guys. If anybody orders the GPD Pocket 2, I know we got a review from a gentleman that ordered the GPD Pocket 1. If he ends up ordering the second one, I'd love to hear from you. But if anybody else is out there and you're planning on ordering this or you have pre-ordered it, hit me up. You can go to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click on the contact form, and reach out to me. I'd love to get in contact with you. 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. The email live@asknoahshow.com. You too can be a part of the program. Add your voice to the conversation. We'd love to hear from you. Headline, this comes to us from OMG Ubuntu. UK government publishes list of Ubuntu 18.04 LTS security tips. The UK's National Cyber Security Centre, as part of GCHQ, has released a new report on how to improve the security of Ubuntu 18.04 LTS. The NCSC is a relatively new section of the UK government responsible for issuing security advice to the public, business, and private sector shareholders on how to avoid computer security threats. It's also responsible for coordinating the response to any major online security incidents or breaches. The NCSC is both prolific and prudent. It has previously issued advice on bettering security while using Chrome OS, Android, Microsoft Office 365, Windows 10, Google Docs, and more. Now, in the latest published advisory, the department focuses on Ubuntu 18.04 operating system, released back in April of 2018. The guidance may be helpful to both regular home users as well as business users. The NCSC security guidance for 18.04 suggests taking the following steps, and here they are. Configure remote access via VPN. Improve passwords with PAM password quality password quality module. Set a maximum screen lockout time. Disable user reporting and proprietary context, etc. Configure UEFI for secure boot protection. Enable live patch kernel updates without rebooting. Only install snaps from the Snap Store. External interface protection. Prevent execution of binary files from the home partition. And enable a firewall. Now, if you don't know anything about computers and you don't know anything about technology, that's a pretty good set of rules to follow. But I do take exception with a couple of these. First of all, configure remote access via VPN. Well, let's add a couple of stipulations to that. If you need remote access, configure remote access with VPN. But if you don't need remote access, do not configure remote access with VPN. Leave the firewall in place. Leave everything closed. Don't enable remote access to your machine unless there's absolutely a good reason to have it. Disable user reporting and popularity contest. Okay, first of all, I don't like the way they phrase that. Popularity contest? Come on, man. The user reporting is not that is not just for counting. That is one of the things that Canonical and other places do, but it is not just there to factor in for popularity. There's a ton of other very useful metrics, and we've covered that on the show. I got into a long debate with a comment on YouTube with Canonical collecting, and I quote, too much data. Install snaps only from the Snap Store. Well, I have a problem with that. If you know first of all, not everything in the Snap Store can be said is 110% safe. Okay. There are security vulnerabilities that happen all over the place. We covered a story a couple of weeks ago where there was a problem with a submission into the AUR. Now, I'm not saying that the AUR and the Snap Store are one and the same. They're not. The Snap Store is much more heavily moderated. But at the same time, I object to the idea that there is one place on the internet where you can get software and it is somehow immune to threats. So that's somewhat silly advice. Secondly, there are plenty of places or plenty of things that are going to come about, especially if snaps are to be successful, where companies are going to host their own snaps or come up with their own snaps. And they may not want to use the official Snap Store. So I have a problem with that. External interface protection. What, are we supposed to put epoxy in all of our USB ports or something? You can't. If you have physical access to the box, there's no amount of security protocol that is going to prevent you from compromising the box, right? At the end of the day, I can just take the hard drive out of the box and leave. And all the best encryption in the world is eventually crackable if I have enough computing power and time, and I have all the time in the world if I've taken the device and removed the device from the secure area. So I'm not sure what that means. External interface protection. I don't think you can secure external interfaces unless you totally remove physical access from the box. But at that point, it's not. You're not. I mean, there's a balance there that has to be between usability of the box and security of the box. That's what we call that the security triangle, right? So all of the article goes on to say all of these are sensible tips, but are any of these strictly necessary? Answer is no. As the report itself stresses, the NCSC's guidance of consistent recommendations should not be seen as a mandatory set of instructions and going no further thought. I don't even agree with what they have here entirely, but it's not a bad thing to discuss. Ubuntu 18.04 LTS comes out of the box with a robust security and industry-grade security practices, regular Ubuntu security notices, and ongoing security updates. So once again, we have one more check in the box for Ubuntu being a more secure, we know it's a more stable operating system than its proprietary alternatives. So that should give some of the YouTube trolls something to latch onto this week, because I said it again, Ubuntu is a more secure operating system. Linux is a more secure operating system. If you'd like your system to be more secure, more reliable, and more stable, then you should install Linux. And no, Microsoft Privilege Escalation doesn't fix that. James is calling from Idaho. Hey, James, welcome to the Ask Noah Show.
Hey, Noah, you wanted to know if people would like to buy a little with price, locked-in software. My answer to that is no. I prefer open source all the way around. I don't like giving any money mandatory to any companies for any licenses whenever I can avoid it.
Okay. Would you buy a computer that is would you buy a computer that doesn't support Linux out of the box?
When it buys a computer that does not support Linux?
Yeah. They didn't have any official support for Linux out of the box. Would you buy that machine?
Oh, no, because then it would have to have a locked-in software of some sort of locked-in software. Like
no, not necessarily. I mean, you could install... I'm not saying you couldn't install Linux on it. I'm saying that out of the box, it doesn't support Linux. So, for example, ThinkPads, they don't... Go ahead.
I don't particularly like those. I don't particularly like giving money to those companies that support the lockdown software. I prefer, if all possible, to get a box that is open or gives me an option to say, yes, I want open source solution to go that route versus you're going to go all the way we will like it until you pay the licensing and change it, wipe it, and cross your fingers it works.
I hear what you're saying, but there are the issue with that. Here's the issue I have with that. The issue I have with that line of thinking is that the vast majority of manufacturers don't support Linux out of the box, right? If you want a machine that officially supports Linux, you have essentially two choices. Well, you have basically two choices. There are a couple of other small players, but the big players in the officially supports Linux on the box are Dell and System76. Okay? Now, I know you have companies like Zereason, but in all reality, those are quite literally, they take ThinkPads and then they put their sticker on them and they resell them. And if I'm wrong about that, then call in and tell me 1-855-450-NOAH, 855-450-6624. And don't call in and tell me that System76 does the same thing with Clevo, because that's not true. They do a lot more to those machines. But buying a machine with an officially supported Linux out of the box sticker is a difficult thing to do. And you severely limit your options. So the thing I was just talking about earlier in the hour, when I said that Linux opens up doors for you, opens up options, those all start to go away if we mandate that sticker on the box says that it supports Ubuntu. Now, I have, I've owned pretty much a computer from every manufacturer under the sun. And I've kind of settled down on ThinkPads because they do work out of the box with Linux. Which is why I was so surprised when we got that call earlier in the hour where the guy was talking about how he was having trouble with multi-monitor on KDE. I got a ThinkPad sitting right in front of me right now. It's hooked up to two monitors. No problems at all. It's running KDE. So I'm not sure where the issue there lies. But ThinkPad has been a fantastic machine to run out of the box. And if you have any questions about that, go visit the folks in Raleigh, Raleigh, North Carolina at Red Hat. Because guess what their standard issue is? The X1 Carbon. Every employee that works at Red Hat gets an X1 Carbon, a ThinkPad. And if Red Hat is willing to base their multi-billion dollar, that's billion with a B, $4 billion company, if they're willing to risk their success on a machine that doesn't officially support Linux out of the box, and by the way, they ain't running Windows on those ThinkPads, right? They're running Red Hat or Fedora. Now, they'll let you run whatever distro you want, but the distro that it comes with when they hand you the company-issued ThinkPad, I know because I asked, is Red Hat Enterprise. And that Red Hat Enterprise Linux is running on a ThinkPad that didn't come with a sticker that supported Linux. So that's where I take issue with the super hard line of, well, it absolutely has to support Linux out of the box or we can't use it. JJ4884 in the chat room says, Project Sputnik at Dell. Yeah, exactly. Dell has been Dell, in the past couple of years, has made some interesting strides because not only does this Project Sputnik, which is the effectively the developer edition of the XPS, not only does that support Linux, but basically all but like 2 models of Dell computers that ship with hardware enablement for Linux. So they officially support it out of the box on almost every machine. And the machines that we're running here in the Ask Noah studio, those are all Dell Optiplexes. And I knew when I bought those machines that they were going to work in a studio-grade environment 100% of the time, and they were going to work out of the box with Linux. And I knew that before I ever bought them because we worked with Dell for a long time. And they didn't come with a sticker, by the way, that said that they worked with Linux. This is before that. I tend to buy older hardware because I don't like paying for brand new hardware because I'm cheap. And frankly, I can get the job done with cheaper hardware. So it makes sense from a business standpoint. But they didn't come with stickers that said they support Ubuntu. I just knew that they would. Couple minutes left in the hour. 1-855-450-NOAH. It's 855-450-6624. It's not too late to make your voice heard and become a part of the conversation. If you'd like to, you can email us live@asknoahshow.com. This week, I spent some time at another radio station, KNOX. That's going to happen again next week. Tentative schedule is I'm going to be there. I'm leaving the end of this week. I'm heading out on a super secret project. That is a Linux-related super secret project, and we'll have more details for you hopefully next week on Tuesday. One of the other things I'm going to do while I'm out on my secret project is I'm going to be meeting with the head of Southeast Linux Fest. They have offered me a position as the head of media for Southeast Linux Fest, and so I'm going to sit down with those guys, and I'm going to hash out a couple of how I want to run Southeast Linux Fest the next year. I want it to become the head for remote people. I want it to be the event that people can attend from anywhere in the world, the place that people can participate, because I think Linux Fests are one of the coolest things that you can do to get involved with the community. And I think they're some of the most under-attended events because I think that there's a lot of people that are very valuable assets in the community and they don't have the money to travel and get there. And maybe we can do something about that on the Ask Noah show to help some folks out. One way or another, though, I need to sit down and need to plan with those guys. And while I'm out there, I'm going to see if I can get Jeremy Sands, the head of Southeast Linux Fest, to sit down for an interview and share the story of how Southeast Linux Fest came to be. If you attended Southeast Linux Fest this year, then you heard that story. Right before dinner, I might add. But you heard the story about how it was an uphill battle and how nobody wanted Southeast Linux Fest to be a thing, how nobody wanted them to succeed, how there were other Linux Fests on the coasts that were already occurring and splitting up sponsor money, splitting up attendees, and splitting up speakers would fundamentally be bad for them. So they intentionally tried to, they didn't do any favors. I'll just leave it at that. And out of all of that, how a bunch of Linux users came together and used the technology that they had and the budget that they didn't have to form solutions and create one of the largest attended Linux fests in the country. Certainly the most passionate. I think it's a really cool story. And as Jeremy talked about that, and as he went into the description of what to do if you're passionate about Linux and the value of your local Linux user group, as he went on to talk about all of those things, I started to think, what could I do to get more involved in Linux in Grand Forks? And that very day, I reached out to another gentleman that was attending there that was from Grand Forks, North Dakota, and I said, we need to do something. We need to start something in the Grand Forks area. We need to get people involved. We need to get people involved in this community, because when I do remote events, we did one for our 1-year anniversary just down in Minneapolis. That's just 4 hours away. And we packed a room full of Linux enthusiasts. And that was kind of a one-off thing, right? So what could people do on a more consistent basis? So we're going to bring Jeremy on the program. We're going to talk to him. We're going to find out, we're going to hear that story, and then we're going to find out what we can do in our own respective communities to bring Linux to the forefront and enable those who want to be a part of the Linux community. Hey guys, did you know this show is available as a downloadable podcast? That's right. To get the latest episode, visit podcast.asknoahshow.com. There you'll find not only links and references to this episode, but all of the past episodes as well. You can get the latest by following us on Twitter at AskNoahShow. The Ask Noah Show continues next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central. A huge thanks to Vox Telesis for providing our phone systems, our producer Ben, our call screener Sarah. This hour of the show may be over, but we've got plenty of more content for you on our website, You can visit that 24/7, AskNoahShow.com.